Howdy, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking about my experience with top surgery. I know that this is a bit of a different video from what I've posted in the past. I'm not going to be reviewing anything today. Instead, I thought I'd give my experience with top surgery for anybody who's thinking about getting it and give some tips and tricks. If you read the title, you'll know this is part 1 of 2 where I'll be talking about my top surgery. This video in particular will be the long form version of my surgery, and then the second follow-on video will be just my top tips for the healing process. So quick little disclaimer before I actually start talking about my surgery. I'm not a medical professional. This video is just my own experience with top surgery. Your surgeon might have different rules and regulations, so might your country if you're outside of the US, so please keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that I do talk about some of the gross bits about top surgery and healing, so keep that in mind. If this bothers you, feel free to click off. Thank you for watching as long as you did, and have a good one. So before going to the actual surgery, you actually have to have a consultation with the surgeon. This is pretty standard. This is where you're going to ask any questions you have about healing, about if you need to stop doing anything in particular. And this is also where you'll find out what surgeries you qualify for. Because in my case scenario, I had breast, boobs, and jugs. I think I was probably like a D, like double D. I had large chest. And so I could not qualify for keyhole surgery. I did double incision. Some factors that are going to play into what type of surgery you're able to get will be your skin elasticity and how large of breast tissue you have. After the consultation, it took about 6 to 7 months before I was actually able to get the surgery done. And in the grand scheme of time, that's not a lot, but it felt like forever just because I was really excited to have it done. I will say, at that point, I was vaping, and the surgeon, especially plastic surgeons in general, will want you to stop vaping and drinking too before the surgery. I would say a minimum of 3 months before you actually have the surgery, because consuming nicotine can cause you to heal slower, can cause your scars to look worse, and can cause some surgery complications. So overall, I would just quit as soon as you find out that you're having your surgery. So before my surgery, I made sure to pack ahead of time just some things. What I got in particular were silicone strips. I got a bunch of pillows and blankets just in case the hotel we went to didn't have enough. I know a friend of mine who had top surgery. He got a pregnancy pillow, those big ones that it's like a big U, and he said that was great. You can also get one of those foam wedge pillows if you want. You're going to want to get a binder ahead of time that actually will connect in the top, and I'll leave a link in the description below of what my surgeon recommends. And wet wipes is another good one, because for about the first week or two you're not going to be able to shower and bathe like you normally would, so I'd recommend that, and maybe some dry shampoo. My favorite item that I got, that my amazing partner actually got me, was this hoodie that's specifically made for top surgery, and it has pockets on the inside, so when you have drainage tubes, you could put the tubes inside, so it's not like dangling around. And I loved this thing. I wore it all the time when I had the chance. I'd also recommend getting some button-up shirts or anything that zips, because you're not going to want to raise your arms to put on clothes, because it could stretch your scars and incisions. I'll put a link in the description below for this hoodie in particular. Before I actually went for the surgery, I had to figure out who was going to take care of me, and I settled on my friend because my partner couldn't come due to work. So when you're picking out someone to be your helper, you're going to want someone who can cook, because you're going to want to eat really good and healthy while you're healing. Someone who's okay to drive, because you won't be able to drive. And someone who's not squeamish about stuff that's medical related, because they'll have to help you strip tubes, empty out the bags. They might see that your chest is like kind of healing and bruised, and just someone you're really comfortable with, because they're probably going to see you naked at one point or another. When we got to the hotel that was in driving distance of my surgeon, what we made sure to do was go to the store and stockpile on food, because after the surgery you're not going to be able to lift heavy things, and you're going to want to make sure you can get everything very accessible and any last minute preparations. I'd also recommend at this time to try to get things that are high up and put them lower, such as like toilet paper, anything that you need to reach. You want to be able to reach it without having to raise your arms higher than this. I would also say that while you're prepping stuff, the way that I prepped my bed was we had 2 separate beds because you wouldn't want to be sleeping in the same bed with someone in case one of you turns over and like hits the tubes or whatnot. So 2 separate beds, and I had the bed, and what I did was I put this long body pillow on the head of the bed, and then I stacked up a bunch of pillows and a blanket around it, so I was almost like in a pillow throne, because after the surgery, you're going to be sleeping elevated on your back. So sorry to any stomach sleepers, but after the surgery, no sleeping on your stomach for a while or on your side. And the reason why you want to be elevated is to help with the drainage, and because you won't be able to use your chest muscles, it'll be easier to get in and out of bed. The actual day of the surgery, I remember being a lot of waiting. When I went in, I was already wearing like really comfy clothes, like an oversized flannel and pajama pants, because I knew I was going to be swollen after the surgery. I brought the binder that my surgeon recommended to buy, because if not, they're just going to put you in a different kind of like binder that's not really ace bandages, but like this compression like bandage. But I just recommend the actual compression vest that I'll link below because it was a lot more comfortable. But I will say that I still did get the bandages just in case I needed to swap while I was washing that binder, because it does get gross. When I was actually being wheeled in for my surgery, I don't remember being given a countdown. I just remember like laying down and then like spreading my arms, and it felt like someone was grabbing my legs, and then I was out. I don't remember anything. But then I do remember waking up being really groggy, like, ooh. And I distinctly remember being so out of it that I thought the nurse who was next to me was my friend who was going to be taking care of me. I was like, how did she get here so fast? Because fun fact, while I was under the knife getting top surgery, my friend went and got her nipples pierced. So we both had something done to our chest that day. When I was waking up, I remember being really disoriented and groggy. It was hard to move around, and I was constantly in and out of sleep almost. Very like you're falling asleep in class. After the surgery's all done, they've already put the compression vest on you, and they want to make sure you're able to eat and drink and use the bathroom like peeing, just to make sure that everything's functioning as it should. And it'll be kind of weird. They'll also start explaining to you all of the aftercare stuff that you're going to want to do, but this is really more for the person taking care of you, and they'll also give out templates and like handouts for this information. But it's really going to be more for your medical attendant, because you're not going to be in it. You're going to be totally out of it. You're not going to remember anything. After we were cleared to go, when we got into the car, we made sure to bring a pillow so that when the actual seatbelt went over me, it wasn't pressing on my chest and it was pressing on the pillow instead. And then funnily enough, we went to Panera Bread to get food because that's what I wanted. And I remember being so out of it with these like Sharpie lines on me fresh out of surgery ordering Panera. Not sponsored, but that would be kind of cool if they did. And then when we get back home to the hotel, actually, I remember we sat down to eat, and that's when all the nausea hit me at once. I was so desperate to just go to bed and be done with it. So I took what meds I could, went to bed immediately, and that was that for the day. Something I'd like to point out too for the surgery is if you have any piercings of any kind, because I have a septum piercing, you have to take it out ahead of time before the surgery, because when they are cauterizing any open blood vessels during the surgery, even though they ground your body, it's still a higher risk of you being burnt because of the electrical current being sent through. So just keep that in mind. Try not to get any piercings done super close to your surgery date, or they might close up. I was on a medication schedule that was like every 6 hours I had to take certain meds. I was given a lot of meds. I was given 2 types of painkillers. One was just like ibuprofen. The other one was like a narcotic of some sort. stool softener, which you're really going to want to use if you're taking any narcotics, because you will be constipated. I think like antibiotics and like an anti-nausea medication, I believe. But overall, we spaced ours out. I think it was 6 hours, and we specifically moved our time frame a little bit. So it was going to be like 6 in the morning, 12 at noon, 6 at night, and then midnight. That way we'd be awake at those times instead of being like 3 in the morning, which really would have sucked. So I'm going to say this in my tips video, but I'm also going to say this here in case you're only watching this. If you're getting top surgery, you're going to want to take stool softeners. And I cannot stress that enough, because after surgery, you're already so swollen from healing and whatnot. And being constipated just makes you feel even worse, especially against that compression of the vest. And the medication that they give you, it will make you constipated, so it's just going to be miserable. So take the stool softeners as soon as you can. Maybe even talk to your doctor, see if you can get it ahead of time and start it like a day or two before the surgery. I don't know, but I think that's the best thing you could possibly do. So before anybody asks, because people have asked me this prior, I did not need help wiping when I had my surgery. Even though I was constipated and whatnot, I was still groggy. I never had an issue where my friend had to come in and wipe my ass. So you should be good. Just be careful of the tubes and make sure you're not tugging or pulling on them, because those tubes are going in through your chest on these little sidewalls, and they'll be stitched to you. So you don't want to tug on them, or you could irritate the exit hole. I know on one of my incision sites, the bandage that was holding the incisions to me had like come undone, so it was just the incision tugging, and I know it irritated that part of my skin for a while. Another thing with that compression vest, you're really going to want to keep it on 24/7 while you're healing. The doctor will tell you this, and it's to prevent hematoma or blood from pooling up underneath your chest, and it will also help the skin of your chest re-adhere to your chest muscles, because it's kind of just free floating for a while. For the first week of healing, I was mainly just eating, drinking water, taking my meds, and resting when I could. I distinctly remember the first 2 days after my surgery trying to text my partner and having such a big problem using my fingers to hold the phone and type. It felt almost like a dream where your body's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. I'd say pain-wise, I wasn't in that much pain actually after the surgery. The worst part about the healing process, in my opinion, was the drainage tubes, because they were routed underneath my compression vest. They were digging into my sides and actually left like marks on my body from the friction, and they were just super uncomfortable. I really hated having them in and wanted them out as soon as possible. And one of the things you're going to be doing after your surgery is keeping track of how much fluid is being drained out of these tubes. What I'm talking about with draining out the tubes is they have these long silicone tubes coming out of your chest, and at the end of them will be a bulb. I'll put a picture up so you can see it. And after the first night, they fill up super fast because you're freshly cut open and whatnot. But your tubes will come out around 1 to 2 weeks after your surgery, dependent on the amount of fluid that's left in those tubes after a certain amount of time. It really also depends on your surgeon. I think I had mine in for 2 weeks. Absolutely hated it, but whatever. So you'll have to empty out the tubes, the bulbs, into a measuring cup that they'll supply you and see how many milliliters is in there. I think it was around 30 milliliters that they wanted to get below. It might have been even less, but I do know that the entire day they would add it up, I believe. I did notice while I was healing that there was a lot of numb spots on my chest. Like overall, my entire chest felt very numb, and on the sides, because I had liposuction done here to prevent any like dog ear from when I close my arms. So you'll notice that, but I didn't notice a lot of pain other than just feeling kind of gross all the time. While healing, I noticed that I would feel worse in the mornings, and I think that has to do with the fact that I'm not really a back sleeper, so I wasn't sleeping very well. So I would wake up and feel super groggy and thirsty, and just need to get up and do something. But throughout the day, it would get better up until bedtime, and then repeat in the morning. I'm not feeling great. But again, it did get better after the tubes came out. Something that I don't really hear talked about, and maybe it's just a me thing then, is how mentally and emotionally fragile you are after top surgery. Because most people talk about how they're really excited about it and whatnot, and they're just healing. But I found myself feeling guilty that I wasn't ecstatic 100% of the time after my surgery because I was feeling really bad mentally. Even though I had my good friend there to take care of me, my partner wasn't there, which I really felt like I needed. And you need to be kind and gentle with yourself. You need to be patient, because while you're healing, you've just gone through this major surgery, and it's going to take a while for you to be 100%. So give yourself patience and kindness while you're healing. Something that my friend who had the pregnancy pillow did was he cut incisions in the binder to allow the tubes to go out this way and hang down that way instead of being pressed up against you directly. And he seemed to enjoy that, but I was just too scared of ruining the binder because they're kind of expensive. When stripping the tubes out, it smells odd. It definitely smells like, kind of like wet dog is what it smelled like, that fluid. But when you're stripping out the tubes, what you'll do is hold one end of the tube, and it'll typically be your medical person doing this or yourself. You hold one end of the tube and you go like this over and over until you get to the bulb, and you'll probably see like chunks of stuff come out. And this is to prevent it from blocking up and getting clogged, because you want it to keep having suction and draining. When you're done stripping the tube on both sides, what you're going to do is pop the suction on your bulb. I think you do it before you strip the tube, but with the suction done, you squeeze that bulb, put the plug back in, let go, and you've created suction again to help keep draining out fluid. For the first week after my surgery, I remember feeling like an absolute grease ball because I wasn't able to shower and get the gauze wet. So wet wipes were really good for that, or even dry shampoo. I do remember at one point I had my friend wash my hair by me just standing over the sink and her washing it. It might have been easier with a detachable shower head, but our hotel didn't have that. And a story I have for you is, if you're going to try and like bathe your lower body, I would recommend doing it with a very strong game plan in place. Because my friend apparently had this master plan where I'd be able to sit in the tub like flat on my ass with my legs sticking out and just fill it up a little bit, so just up to my waist. I'd be able to rinse off a little bit, feel not as gross, and she would be able to get me out. I should have asked more questions. I really should have, but I believed in her when she was like, I got a plan, I got this. Her master plan was, after the water all drained out and whatnot, was to pull my arms to try to pull me out of the tub. Which, right after the surgery, you're not supposed to use your chest muscles at all. And you're not supposed to, like, raise them up at all. So this was a terrible idea. It did not work. And instead what I had to do was basically fling myself over the tub so that my diaphragm was on the edge of the tub, and then get my feet out from or under me and stand up. So just keep that in mind. Again, love my friend, love her to death. She did an amazing job taking care of me. This was just her one fault. And I can laugh about it now because nothing bad happened. During the entire healing process, I would definitely recommend walking around as much as you can. You're not going to be doing like cardio and lifting weights, obviously, but moving around and walking is good for your body overall, and it could help you feel better and heal faster. After the first week of this, I went back for my follow-up appointment, and they took the gauze off my nipples and took the stitches out, and I didn't really feel any pain from them taking the stitches out of my nipples because it was numb. I couldn't really feel much, and the tube stayed in, which I wasn't happy about, but whatever. And after that point, you're able to shower, but you're not going to want to scrub or rub your nipples or the incision sites at all. You're just going to want to let the water flow over you. When you're showering, you could pin the tubes up to like the shower curtain. Just be careful which way you're turning so you don't actually like tug or rip on them in any way. When you first see your nipples at this appointment, you're gonna be like, what the hell is going on? Because when I look down, I just saw you these two like black scabs. I was fully convinced my nipples had gone necrotic. I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna have no nipples. Which, if you don't want nipples, you don't even have to have them for top surgery, and you can get them re-tattooed on after the fact, but I just didn't want to have to do that. But no, they were totally fine. It's just your body's healing and it's scabbed over and whatnot. Do not tug or peel at those scabs at all, because the skin there is very delicate and it's reattaching to your skin, so you don't want to accidentally pull a nipple off. So fair warning to you, when you get top surgery, your nipples might lose their pigmentation. After those scabs come off, like they just naturally fall off on their own, I normally have brown nipples because I'm tan, but they were pink afterwards because all the pigment like slogged off. So I'm looking to get that fixed currently by getting it tattooed, but I just haven't found the right person. I'd also like to point out that my nipples healed slightly different from one another, where this one is way flatter and it's just like flat. This one has a very distinct nipple to areola distinction, but that wasn't my surgeon's fault. That was just how my body decided to heal. After you get the bandages off your nipples, you're also going to start a nipple care routine that they're going to give you. They give you an ointment that you put on after the shower. You put gauze and like a band-aid over it, and then a waterproof band-aid. And it's just a lot, but it's all to make sure that your nipple heals properly and adheres to your body properly. If you have any worries or concerns that your nipple is going necrotic in any way, like say you have an infection or anything, please get in contact with your surgeon as soon as you can, because that can go bad very quickly and you want to get that looked at immediately. After about another week of this, I went back in and got my tubes removed. What they do is get the bulb, pop it open so there's no more suction, snip those little incision or those little threads holding it in place, and then they just pull it out. I will say it didn't hurt, but I could feel friction, and it almost felt like someone like zapping my chest, like I was getting static shock. So it felt weird. And also I'd like to point out that my incision's about like this long. The tube feels like it's this long. Like, I swear to God, we have a video of it where they're taking it out and it just keeps going. It feels like those clowns that are like pulling out the handkerchiefs. On the bright side though, taking the tubes out, the amount of relief I felt was immense. I felt so much better after they were out. I didn't feel as gross or like as restrained in that binder as much. And also, you could shower. Again, you're not going to want to rub your chest or nipples at all because you don't want to damage any delicate tissue. And I also would put bandages over the exit holes that those tubes came from, just because I was afraid of water getting in and something getting infected. But they do close up fairly quickly. The holes themselves will still have a little bit of drainage in the beginning because it's just like an open wound for a little bit, but after a while they'll close up and there won't be any drainage anymore. An experience I had was around my incisions down here where there were steri strips. I had a little bit of pus coming out of my chest and I thought it was an infection. So I had immediately contacted my doctor, and he said remove the steri strips, rub it down with like soap and water to get any adhesive off, and send him a picture to see if it was infected at all. Luckily, it wasn't infected. I wasn't running a fever. It didn't feel hot or tender to the touch, and it was just my body healing in its own way. The entire time I was healing, the max amount of time I would go without wearing a binder per day was 1 hour, and that was just to give me time to shower without it and to wash it if need be, because it does get gross after a while. You're going to be wearing it 24/7. You're going to sweat in it. You're going to get deodorant on it. You might get some blood and pus on it. It happens. Just take it off, wash and dry it, and put it back on. Or if you have a secondary one, change into that. So at my last appointment, we made sure that everything was healing properly, that I was good to go. I did ask my doctor to pull out some extra stitches that were just kind of poking out of my skin that hadn't dissolved all the way yet. He just pulled them out. It's totally fine, and it healed perfectly fine. In the 3 to 4 months after your surgery, you're still going to be wearing a binder. Again, this is to help your chest heal properly. They honestly recommend that the longer you wear the binder, the better. And I know it sucks. I really do know it sucks because you got the surgery to not have to wear a binder, but you're still having to do it. But the surgery result is a lot better if you consistently wear it. That way it's adhering to your body properly and nothing is going to happen like a hematoma. When I was wearing a binder, I did switch from the binder that they had given me to a different one that was just a half body one instead of the one that goes over my stomach, because I found it more comfortable to have that half one. And I would also say that in this time frame, you're still not going to want to be picking up anything heavy or raising your arm above your head, because it could stretch your incisions and make the scars wider. And it'll also feel a bit uncomfortable since the skin is still so tight. Speaking of scars, some scar care I would do personally is once a day when I would shower, I would get soapy hands and I would massage my scars in this motion of doing like a round motion all around the scars, on the sides, and the nipples, just to help break down the scar tissue and help it lay flat. And just make sure that it wasn't gonna get really tough and hard, especially because you move so much in your chest. You don't want it to be very tight. Afterwards, I had these silicone strips that I would use, cut them down the length so that they would just fit all along my incisions, and I would keep those on 24/7 other than when I was showering. And this was to prevent any rubbing on fabric like my shirt or when I was going to bed, the binder, and it helps keep the scar tissue moist and flat so that it'll heal nicely. Another tip I'd like to share for you is don't go out into the sun without a shirt on for the first year of your surgery, because that can also cause your scars to become darker and more visible. I think the first time I went shirtless was over a year after I had gone my surgery, but I think my incisions have healed very nicely. They're very pale, and when you touch them, they're very soft to the touch. It's not like a very hard texture to them. The only part of my chest that scarred worse was the exit holes for the drains, because it was just like a larger opening and it was open for longer in general. Something I'd like to point out is it took me about 6 months after my surgery before I could comfortably do lat pull downs or pull-ups again. So just keep that in mind, that your skin is still going to be very tight after your surgery, and your healing process is going to be a lot longer than you're probably expecting. So that was my experience with getting top surgery. I hope this video was informative, entertaining. If you guys have any questions about my experience with top surgery, please let me know. Leave a comment below. And I hope you look out for the next video where I'll give my top surgery tips. Have a good one. Qualify for? Hello?